What's going on, Cooper? I just finished reading your message or listening to your message. It was amazing. I loved it. I just want to start out by saying what's up, everybody. I'm a Canvas College student. Absolutely just made me laugh so hard. I think you are just a great communicator and you're just funny in general, and you bring a lot of energy, and I think that does a lot for you in terms of getting a message. Even though it was a manuscript and you're just kind of just reading off of a piece of paper, I think that it was still super engaging and entertaining. So keep that up. Good stuff. My first couple things, you said, what does it look like to live rich as a follower of Jesus? This was like your beginning statement. I think that's just a great way to bring in the tension at the beginning of your message, because I think those two ideas contradict each other in most people's eyes. I mean being rich and following Jesus. And so it technically could be marked as prosperity gospel if you didn't take it the direction you did. But that's really just a joke, by the way. But for most people, I think the way you intro this is a great way to hook every single person in the room, because you are addressing something that they do not even realize is a solution to a problem they don't know they have. You're basically saying that, like, hey, you got to be rich as a follower of Jesus, just not the way you think. So I think it was really good. And then your story, you said, I wanted to own a Lamborghini Aventador. I think it's a very relatable personal story in two ways, with wanting to have a nice car and loving to play with Lego. That was 100% me as a kid. And I think those are both things that almost anybody can relate to, which to me makes for a great story, because you have a lot of ability to connect with more people. And I just think that the more people you can relate to and the more people you can connect to, the better your messages will be and the more they will hit. Because the more specific and narrow you get with a story, the less impact it has, in my opinion. You also said it's not a bad thing. You're talking about pursuing riches and money and fame and stuff like that. And you said it's not a bad thing. In fact, it's actually expected of us because we live in a broken world. I think that was a phenomenal way for you to explain that nothing in this world is what it seems. And so what looks good to us actually might be bad. And so I think that ties back to what you were saying about how you can be rich as a follower of Jesus, because it does not mean rich in worldly terms. Like, the way we follow Jesus is completely different than the way we follow the world. And rich in terms of Jesus is completely different than being rich in the world. But I think it was just a great kind of like connect point you did there. And then you also said, as I mentioned, we're going to be jumping into the book of Philippians. And you had a lot of different like points in here. You had one where you were just like, it was in between your points where you said like, we're going to jump right into it and stuff like that. And I think those kind of statements, it's just personal preference, maybe. But I think those statements you might just be better off with cutting out completely, just because they kind of create just like a stuttery kind of flow between your points, between your like story and your text and stuff like that. And so I think you might be better off saying something like, we learn what being rich and following Jesus have in common in Philippians 4, verse 10 through 23, instead of saying, hey, we're going to jump into this piece of scripture, pull out your books. So that way it just flows a little bit better. And so I think it could be helpful, but I would definitely recommend trying to find a better transitional statement than what you have. I think it'll just help a lot. And then the last point I had, and I will be completely honest, I struggle with this all the time. In messages specifically, I've been able to really iron this out, because I've learned that this actually subtracts from my message more than helps it, and that's saying And like I said, I say this all the time, but I think the less you can say this word, and maybe instead of saying it, just pausing or skipping it, because it will make you come across way more confident. And the word is almost like a space filler when we don't know what to do. And I think that actually takes away from moments where there needs to be space. If you were to make a point, and then say right after you make the point, you kind of delete the impact that it can have, versus if you say the point, pause, and then get into it. I think that makes way more impact than saying because it kind of takes away from it. So that was just a final thought, and that's being really critical. Overall, I thought your message was actually amazing. I think your points were really good. That kind of stuff that I mentioned as parts to work on mainly just has to do with just keeping your message down to what it's actually built on, which is your points and your content and your story. And the things that take away are mainly just what you say in the middle, which is like the factor, and then some of your transitions. But overall, I was really happy with it. Great job, Cooper.